In this video, I'll show you how you can get started using disk image backup with Comet. Currently, our disk image backup supports Windows operating systems, which you can perform a bare metal backup of any currently attached drives or individual partitions from any of the drives. Comet will store the disk image files in VMDK format, which can be restored onto physical hardware, a virtual machine, or a cloud environment. It's also possible to mount the image and restore individual files. Now, let's create a disk image protected item. Keep in mind using disk image will incur a booster charge. Select any currently attached drives. It's possible to select all drives and then exclude from there. If there is any change to a partition of a drive, it will cause that drive to be recognized differently in Comet. If you had selected such a drive, Comet will warn you that the drive can no longer be found. You would need to reselect the drives or partitions. If you just want an image of the whole drive so you can boot into it, select the drive and keep all partitions checked. Comet will exclude unused space from the disk in the backup, but turning this option on here, it will include the unused space, which could be used for forensic data recovery, but at the expense of slowing down the backup. Alright, let's run a backup. Now that we have a backup, I'll go through the restore process. Go into the restore wizard, select the storage vault containing the image, choose your disk image protected item and go next. Here, we can either restore an image directly to this computer or restore into virtual disk files. If we select restore to physical device, we'll be able to restore the image directly onto this computer. The target disk or partition should be unmounted. Comet may be able to do this automatically from your current booted OS if no programs are using the target drive, a non-boot drive for example. But in order to restore to your boot drive, you should first reboot the PC into a recovery environment. When you try restoring a smaller partition into a larger one, Comet will automatically extend the restored file system to fill the target partition. However, you cannot restore a large backed up partition into a smaller partition. In this case, you must first shrink the partition using the operating system's partition manager prior to performing the backup. You can use the Edit button to repartition the local drives using Windows Disk Management. After doing so, use the Refresh button to refresh the local disk and partitions for restore. Let's select a backed up disk to restore from the left-hand pane. Then select a target disk to write to from the right-hand pane. And now I can click the Add to Restore Queue button down here. Repeat these steps as necessary. When you're happy with your selection, click the Restore button to proceed. If we restore as virtual disk files, you will see that it will be in VMDK format. There is one plaintext VMDK descriptor file representing metadata about the whole drive, plus separate raw image files for each partition's extent on the disk. If a partition was selected for backup, it has a corresponding data file. If a partition was not selected for backup, there will be no corresponding data file. The data files have the same file size as the partition they are from, but if there was unused space inside that partition, it will be all zeros and will be compressed by the storage vault. However, it is the full size when you go to restore the VMDK file. Once you've restored these files, it is possible to convert them to other formats, such as VHD. It's possible to extract individual files from the image by using a program like 7-zip for instance, or mounting the image. You can attach the disk image files to a new or existing virtual machine, whether that being on a local virtual platform or on a cloud provider. Depending on the cloud provider's capabilities, it may be possible to boot the new virtual machine from them or attach them as extra disk to an existing virtual machine. If the disk image contains a Windows OS installation, then it may be bootable. You will need to ensure the boot environment is consistent with the source disk. If your PC boots using EFI, for instance, if the source disk contains an EFI system partition, then you should configure the virtual machine to boot in EFI mode, which is Generation 2 in Hyper-V, or this checkbox here in VirtualBox. Otherwise, you should configure the virtual machine to boot in Legacy mode. It's also known as MBR mode, and on Hyper-V, this is Generation 1. Head on over to our documentation for guides on some of the platforms that you may be restoring to. There will be a link in the description. In order to restore to your boot drive, you should first reboot the PC into a recovery environment. Comet can help prepare the recovery environment. In the client settings page, you'll find the USB recovery media option here. There's two options: WinRE and Windows to Go. WinRE allows you to create a minimal USB recovery media based on the Windows recovery environment and requires a removable USB drive of at least 2 GB in size. You can choose whether the current OS drivers are embedded into the image or not. And so when you boot from the drive, you will see that the Comet desktop client directly appears on the screen. And as what we previously went through, you can use the client restore wizard to proceed the recovery process. When exiting Comet, the Windows recovery environment will appear, allowing you to perform other pre-boot tasks, such as boot repair or accessing the command prompt, before rebooting the PC normally. Now, Windows to Go is an alternate option, allowing you to create a full Windows boot environment. No customizations are applied to the generated Windows to Go boot drive. You should boot into this drive, then install Comet normally, and use it to perform the recovery operations, such as restoring data. You may also want to create a recovery environment in any other way. Either Windows or Linux can be used as a suitable recovery environment. Some possible methods include creating a Linux bootable USB drive, or using a third-party tool to create a Windows to Go drive, or using a recovery media from your PC OEM vendor, such as Lenovo, Dell, HP. In these cases, you would need to manually launch the Comet Backup client once booted into the recovery environment. And so that covers Comet's disk image backup type. There is more information over at our documentation, and there's also step-by-step guides for restoring to some of the virtual platforms. Thank you for watching.